Mm. All right, we're getting ready to go live here. Just hooking up to Instagram. What is up? We're going to be talking ice fishing and ice conditions tonight. See where everybody's at. See how you guys are doing fishing. See if you're getting on the ice. There's Dax. We'll let him on. You guys on YouTube, you'll be able to hear Dax. You won't be able to see him, but you should be able to hear him all right. There we go. Coming to you from northern Wisconsin. How's it going, Dax?
Good, how are you?
Doing pretty well. Yeah. It's been another snowy 24 hours here.
Yeah, no, it's kind of depressing, to be honest with you.
I am with you. It's there's just nothing good about it as far as ice fishing goes. I mean, we just can't withstand too much more of it before it's just going to be almost impossible to move around.
No, I hear you, man. I'm lucky living in Chautauqua because we had all that rain and knocked down a lot of snow.
Mm-hmm.
I've been traveling on the four-wheeler. And we have a lot of drunken snowmobile activities that pack down a lot of snow.
Yep.
So we can get out that way. But yeah, I can't foresee myself fishing anywhere north of your house.
No. We got the rain too, but we already had so much snow that it didn't really pack down a ton. We just got another 7 inches tonight on top of 3 inches that we got 2 nights ago on top of that snow. So, I mean, it just keeps coming. Oh, it's brutal.
Yeah, it's truly going to show who wants to ice fish in the worst way this winter. If you're fortunate enough to have a machine, or you're just a walking person, or the weekend guys, I feel bad for them. I'm lucky enough to, you're lucky enough we can fish during the week, I guess. But
sometimes
I'm lucky enough with my job schedule. I can fish week or weekend, but I've been in Chautauqua for 7 years now, and Wisconsin for 23. And I can't remember a time where we're leaning toward the end of January now, and I have not seen a vehicle on the ice yet.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Angler X says might be a good time to hit some open water opportunities. I'm probably going to plan on doing that as soon as possible. I mean, there's some stuff on the Mississippi a guy could fish probably right now. I'm guessing they're still fishing down there. And Red Wing. And the North Shore of Lake Superior, you can still launch boats up there right now too. And there's guys that have been catching some cohos and some Lakers up there out of the boat. And if we don't get a big, huge cold snap with no wind, that's going to be open and fishable pretty early. The earliest I've ever been up there trolling for cohos was the third week of February. So.
Yeah, I can't. You're probably a weather nerd like I am. I don't see anything really cold coming anywhere soon.
Yeah. Water and Ice says, I'm wondering how early ice out might be. My area of the cities, we only have 9 to 12 inches. I mean, that's pretty much what we have, like in a lot of places, realistically. There might be some crappy ice sandwiched in there or something, but there's some lakes that don't even have 8, and it's not that good of ice. I mean, it's not going to take long for ice out in those conditions. I mean, it's just going to fly once we get warm weather.
And even if for some reason February's cold, it's not going to penetrate through all that stuff anyway. It doesn't matter really. It'll make the top freeze solid, I guess, but it ain't gonna. Unless someone plows off every lake in northwest Wisconsin, there's not going to be much ice growth.
No, even if we do get a week of cold, it's not going to be enough. with that snow on there. It's going to be weird. I mean, at least now they have the early catch and release bass season. So if we do have an early ice out, you can go target some bass, on that early spring bite, which is always fun.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I guess we can kind of plan for whatever. I have noticed, well, you've noticed too, just going fishing as much as we've been lucky enough to do. I mean, like we talked about last week, there's no one out.
Mm-mm.
I mean, you can, like I said, I'm lucky where I'm at in Chautauqua. I can get around on the wheeler. And I've been out on a Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday. And I've been out during the week. I was out yesterday. And I think we saw 2 snowmobilers and 1 fisherman.
Mm-hmm.
And we have the big Chautauqua Derby this weekend. So I hope everyone's careful. I'm sure natural selection will take its course this weekend.
This is usually about the first weekend that all the big ice fishing contests kind of start, like that last week of January. And then there usually is one every weekend somewhere the rest of the season. But I know they're canceling a lot of them this year just because of the conditions. I mean, most of them are getting canceled from what I've heard.
Yeah, what was the one I heard? And I think I was at work, and one guy talking about the one in Baronet was canceled already.
Yeah. There's one down by, I forget what the lake is, but it's right off of Highway 8. And it's like the most Wisconsin thing I've ever seen. There's a big giant wooden sign out on the lake that says ice fishing contest canceled. It's like stuck out on the snow so people can read it as they go by.
Upper Turtle?
It might have been. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like 2 miles east of town.
Yeah, that's probably the one. I don't know.
That's true. I mean, it stinks, I mean, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. We want all the little cities to get that extra revenue. I know Balsam Lake has a huge tournament for Super Bowl weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we have this one. We have one this weekend in Chautauqua, and then there's a ski team in Chautauqua that throws one, I think, the weekend of Valentine's week. And then you got, probably Spooner Lake and, all the other little cities that host ice fishing tournament, like Poskin, for example. There's another one.
Yep.
Truck went through that lake already.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of all the Yellow Lake used to have a huge ice fishing contest that drew a lot of people, even when we were younger.
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the biggest events, I think, in the winter.
Rice Lake's got a couple every winter.
Yeah, in Chautauqua and Rice Lake, they plow out a road so they can have ice derby or
snowmobile races, car races, yeah.
Yeah, so all that's pretty much gone. I talked to Pete Maynard today, actually right around dinner time, and he posted a video on Instagram about he was walking through his yard or whatever, and he said legitimately they probably got like a foot of snow.
Oh man, that's brutal.
And he's only, I think he's like 10 minutes east of Big Round Lake or Round Lake.
Yeah, he's up in that area, just east of Round Lake. Yeah, that sucks. It kind of breaks your heart every time you hear a snow report. It's just like, oh man, there too. It's like you can't get away from it. You can drive 60 miles in any direction from my house, and then you're still in it. It's like, it's brutal. Andrew Bland on YouTube asked, was looking to get out on Rhinelander area. Just curious what the ice conditions might be. I'm from down in Illinois and we have no ice. I'm on foot, so no snow machine. I'm going to say Rhinelander's the same as here. Absolute crap. So you can walk out, you don't have a snow machine anyways. So get out there and fish, but you're not going to go hit 20 spots on every part of the lake in a day. That's for sure. I mean, you're going to go as far as you can huff it out there to a decent area. And the good thing is, like Dak said, there's nobody fishing for the most part. So your odds of catching fish on decent structure are still pretty good because they haven't gotten pushed off. That's the thing. Like the fish are staying on the good spots because they aren't getting pressured.
Correct. Yeah, if you're going to Rhinelander, I mean that's only 40 minutes from Eagle River, maybe, I think.
Mm-hmm.
South.
Yep,
Right?
about that.
And you got was it Andrew was his name?
Yep.
Yeah, so Andrew, I have some friends in Eagle River, and the annual snowfall rate in Eagle River is 20 feet. Just to put that in perspective, they got snow all day today because Rob Manthei is in Big St. Germain, and he owns Fibbers Resort on the lake, and he normally plows out on the lake to get guide trips and people around on the water relatively easily with side by sides and stuff. And he said there's no chance of even thinking about using a vehicle on the lakes this year because of all the snow already. So, best recommendation would be to call Raleigh and Helens, which is in Minocqua, or what's the other one in Minocqua there? Like the north middle of
Raleigh
town.
and Helens is the only one I know over there.
Yeah, there's one right in the middle of town. I can't think of the name of it.
Okay.
It's just, I know exactly where it is. It's right next to Quick Trip. But, and then Eagle River's got like 7 or 8 really well-known bait stores. So prior to you driving 7 or 8 or 9 hours, I would strongly suggest just calling, I guess. I mean, there's a lot of water in Eagle River, and you could probably walk on all of them, but just to be on the side.
I mean, there's ice. Like you can fish on foot. It's just how much work and misery do you want to go through to do it? That's basically what it comes down to. Really, I mean, that's so stupid, but it's true. It's brutal. Like,
anyone that lives east of Caleb and I that does not have some type of track machine, like they get Lake Superior, Lake Effect snow, and they get Lake Michigan, Lake Effect snow. We're far enough south where we don't get that. So Caleb and I each have a 4-wheeler, but Caleb's very good buddies have access to both. So if it does get rough, I mean, they can use their snowmobilers, but if you go east of us at all, anywhere past Stone Lake or Hayward and east and northeast corner of the state, the chance of using a 4-wheeler is pretty much 10%. I mean, a snowmobile is pretty much mandatory to get around up there in the wintertime, whether you're ice fishing or just relaxing for the weekend. So walking is going to be your only means, then it's going to be extremely hard.
Yeah. Andrew said, that's wild. Thanks for all the help. I'm in the area for work and just wanted to scratch the itch. Yeah, I don't blame you. Go. I mean, still go. I'm not saying don't go. I'm just saying be prepared to walk and walk through slush. Angler X on YouTube. By the way, if you guys haven't checked out Angler X's channel, he's got a really cool YouTube channel. He does a lot of fishing down in the Mississippi River. But he said, have you been to Chequamegon Bay, or do you have any insight on the ice conditions there? I have, and I know that the ice conditions are decent inside of Houghton Point, inside the bay. As far as north of there, they're basically non-existent. So there may be a few guys on some odd spots north of Houghton Point, but for the most part, like Bayfield, Red Cliff, anywhere up in that area is complete open water. So there is no ice to fish at this point up there. But you can fish Ashland side too, but Ashland side is same as everywhere else up here, slush. Major slush pockets, very difficult to get around. So, the main focus of the pressure has been from like the S curves, Bono Creek to just north of Washburn. And that's been getting pounded because it's really the only decent ice. So, yeah, it's not great. I mean, not great up there either. It's just, even if you took all the snow out of the equation, it's not been cold. it hasn't been cold enough to make any ice anyway.
No.
It's been so warm that the big lakes just aren't making ice, on the big lake at all. Like it made a little bit and then it just blew out and it hasn't made ice since. So Scott Johannick, he might have been up there. He just joined. He might have been up there recently. I saw he caught a few fish, a couple browns and stuff. I mean, there's people catching fish, but ice is just very difficult to find right now. Anything new, anyway. It's pretty much the same thing.
Yeah, to add to your point about the ice, whether it's from Washington Bay or 120 miles where I live south, we drilled 40 holes in one spot Sunday afternoon. I was fishing with Derek, and we went back and checked that spot Wednesday morning, and there was probably about an 1/8 inch of ice on top of all the holes I drilled from Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
Never drilled another hole there. Yesterday morning, we just stepped on them all, and they just broke.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, 3 full days without being there, and that's our weather. So no ice is being made at all. This is the same ice that I'm fishing on. Is the same ice that I took my daughter tip-up fishing on December 7th.
Yeah, basically month-old ice.
Yep.
Cart Dak said, I was off Ashland side today. Travel was fairly decent. Few slush pockets, nothing major. Well, that's good. That's good to hear because I actually haven't been over there. I've heard there was slush pockets, but I guess maybe they're not too bad, which is it's better than last year because they were horrendous last year. Scott said, tough year for ice, somewhat of a cool down coming. Yeah, there is a cold front coming. I mean, if we get no wind and five or 6 nights below zero, we will get new ice to fish up on Lake Superior. But if it's windy, we may not. It just depends on the wind. But I think there's a chance we may get some fresh ice before it's all over. But it won't be for long. It's not going to be thick. It'll be a short-lived bite, most likely, before it blows out again.
Yeah. And that place there, I mean, that's not one you want to monkey with at all.
No, it's not. It's not for the inexperienced or anybody who isn't prepared, for the worst. So
it's turn on you in a quick hurry, and if you're not ready for it, it could be bad pretty quickly.
Yep. Exactly. So that's why I am definitely stay on the cautious side with my ice reports up there too, because I don't want to tell somebody, just go out of whatever landing and it's perfectly safe. Like I would never say that on Lake Superior ever. So that's everyone's up. It's up to you on Lake Superior to put your best work in and know the ice conditions.
Yep. And that's the tricky stuff about like me, like as a licensed guide, and then obviously a ton of people know both of us. When they ask me for an ice report, it's kind of like, I could tell you what the ice is where I have personally walked, but I'm not going to tell you the ice report about somewhere I've not been.
Mm-hmm.
If I say to Caleb that there's 12 inches in Lake Chetek and he goes to Prairie and falls through, then he's going to be pissed off at me, right? I mean, they're going to be, well, the guide told us that the ice was good.
Right. Or even like Long Lake, you can say, Long Lake has 12 inches of ice on it, but there's 6 different parts of Long Lake that can be completely different ice conditions. So, especially in a year like this, I mean, the ice is all over the place. It's just the most variable ice I've ever seen. And that's why it's so dangerous, because you could go out on some lakes, drill a hole, 16 inches of solid ice, be like, all right, let's go. And then, 100 yards away, it's down to 8 and it's got pockets in it and it's, bad deal. So,
yeah.
Some years it freezes super evenly because there's no snow. It's cold. You get basically 22 inches of ice on the whole lake and it's solid. And that's a normal year, right? 22 to 26 inches of solid ice. Like that's a typical year by mid-February around here. And it's not going to be anywhere near that this year. Not even close.
I'd be surprised if we get more than a foot on any lake by you.
Mm-hmm.
Or east of you, I should say. I mean, we fish a lot of that water, but anything north of you, no chance.
Yeah. We had a question about Red Lake. How much ice is on Red Lake? I believe they have the permanence out because I've seen videos of it. Yeah, I mean, same thing. I don't know exactly because I haven't been there, but I do know that northern Minnesota is in way better shape than we are for snow, and cold. They've had much less snow and much more cold, and they're actually sitting pretty good. Like my buddy was out in Otter Tail County last week, and they drove trucks out everywhere they went, and there was 22 inches of solid ice. So completely different story in western and northern Minnesota compared to here.
Yeah, so night and day. I've had a couple of buddies take their ice castles to Red Lake. I talked to one guy. He was on Red Lake on Friday, so it had been last weekend, and he has a 3/4 ton of some sort. I'm not sure the specific vehicle, and he's got a 16 or 17 foot ice castle, and he was fine.
Mm-hmm.
The ice there, obviously, it's one of the shallowest lakes in the state. So as far as ice growth, that's not an issue. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that one is probably the safest. I know they're not letting people on Mille Lacs with full size trucks.
Yeah.
Because all the cracks keep reopening with the weird weather.
But
any of the small northwest of there are fine.
Yeah. They're doing machine travel on Mille Lacs, but no full-size pickups. And I haven't heard much lately in the last few weeks about Lake of the Woods, but I'm assuming they've got roads plowed out there again, but I haven't really heard much from up there.
Yeah, same scenario. They're using their own machines, and they're kind of trying to slow down the vehicle traffic. I mean, there's still people that are going to go and do whatever they want, but obviously the resorts, I mean, that's their means for the entire winter, so they're going to take precautions and use their own stuff, and they're constantly checking, so I would rather trust a resort and pay $10 to access the water than go off a public landing 40 miles away. I mean, it's not worth it.
Right. Yep. Now, I've heard, interestingly, that up the North Shore and up into, a lot of guys, fished the trout opener last weekend up on the Boundary Waters and up the North Shore, and they actually said a lot of the ice conditions were super good. Like, they had all that slush early and it froze, and they said that basically only a couple inches of snow on the ice up there where they were fishing too. So, and from what I saw, a lot of guys did really well on both stock trout and Lakers. So that might be an option too if a guy wants to take a trip way up there, up north. I mean, that's always an adventure. But
that is definitely one of the coolest. That's the coolest place I probably. I mean, I haven't lived everywhere in the world, but that's the coolest place I've ever lived in my life by far. The Boundary Waters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some pretty cool stuff up there. Water and Ice. Ray Tiffany joined. How you doing, Ray? Resorts on Mille Lacs were just getting their houses out last week. Many of them. Water and Ice said that. Yeah, that sounds about right. Gonna get ready for catch and release trout. That's another one. Yeah, I didn't even think of that. That's open in Minnesota and Wisconsin now. The catch and release trout season in the streams, and that's always a good open water option for this time of year. And from now until ice out, right in that period of time where you can't ice fish and the lakes aren't quite open yet, you can go catch some stream trout.
Yeah, there's got to be. I was talking to my buddy yesterday, Chad, who was with me, and he travels all over the state. He knows Weldon and his family.
Mm-hmm.
He's a logger. He manages logging companies. And we were already talking about turkey hunting. And how the snow is going to affect the turkey population, so.
Yeah. It could be pretty rough on the birds. I mean, at least we don't have the cold like we had in 2013-14. Because that year we had all the snow and we had the 30 below, 25 below, 50 below wind chills for like 2 months, 3 months. And they survived that. And there was more snow that year than there is this year. So if they can make it through that, they can make it through anything. But I'm sure we'll lose some,
Yeah, but yeah.
They kind of yard up like deer in the wintertime. They condense their population down into a small area where there's a lot of food and cover, and they tend to kind of keep trails packed down and holes open to the food, and they know how to survive, but definitely we'll lose some.
Yeah.
And it's going to be tough on the deer too, obviously.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, I'm thinking, all that snow, it's going to take a while to melt all the snow. That's the problem with catch and release trout. When you got 3 feet of snow, it can be a real bummer to walk the stream banks.
No kidding.
Long Lake is uber slushy, anywhere from 6 to 12 from north side up into Narrows. Old man took a bad fall one day, so we cut the trip short. Yeah, I was on what was it? Saturday. I was on Long. And yeah, if you weren't on where people had been fishing, and it was 6 inches of water, pretty much everywhere. It was halfway up your boots. But I actually found a mega school of panfish that nobody had been fishing, because I went off the beaten path. I crossed this one area to where nobody had really been fishing. And I knew there's panfish that stack up there sometimes. And sure enough, I put my Panoptix in and just found a giant 20-foot long by 20-foot wide, 10-foot thick wad of crappies and bluegills. And I just wailed on them for like 2 hours. So I don't think anyone had fished them the whole winter, and all those fish that got bumped from all the activity in the other spots were probably just piling up there. And they were super aggressive, which is really weird for Long, because usually on Long Lake they're finickier than all get out, but these ones were pretty fired up, probably because they were in a giant school too. But
yeah, that definitely helps.
And they weren't huge, I got a good meal out of them and had to sort quite a bit, but had a couple. The biggest gill was pushing 9.5 inches, and the crappies were like 10 to 12s, which are nothing wrong with that.
No, I won't argue. That's basically Chetek chain. I mean, I don't think I probably said this before, but I don't think I've ever fished a more fertile body of water in my lifetime as far as numbers of panfish. It's truly unbelievable how many fish I see in the spring spawning, how many fish I see a day or two after ice out migrating to the warmer water bays. I've been able to use a Panoptix. I personally don't have an ice Panoptix, but I have some buddies that we've been using them out there this year. And the sheer number of schools that we fish that we have personally seen that we are catching fish out of, we catch like a half a percent. We catch like 0.5% of the fish that we actually see.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're kind of nomadic where I live. So as far as structure goes, they don't really care about that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more of like 90% of the Chetek chain is just a basin. I mean, there's no actual, like if you looked at a map, Humminbird or Navionics, and you compare it to any other lake in the county, I mean, Big Chetek, Red Cedar, or Long, and you compare those to the Chetek chain, it's uncomparable because there's no structure where I live. There's just 3 miles of flooded timber and 7 feet of water, and then 50 yards to for example, Prairie Lake, which is on the west side of the Chetek chain, there's probably 7 miles of flat sand.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then you catch fish there for what reason? I have no idea. I mean, I truly don't. I mean, when I fish on the Chetek chain, and I think I'm a pretty decent fisherman, and people ask me, like, where do you catch them? Or do you set up on the rocks or the weeds, or, do you set up on points? And I'm like, well, we don't set up on anything.
We set up on fish.
We really don't. I mean, I have waypoints out there that I've caught fish in the past, but they're more of they're like timing waypoints. Like you would understand, like timing waypoints. Like you have a lot of good spots on your lakes that you catch fish at sunset, or you catch fish at sunrise, or
sure.
I mean, you've taken notes since you've been little, so you kind of get my drift. But there's millions of fish out there, and they don't relate to any structure related type of water compared to any other lake in Minnesota or Wisconsin. They just they don't seem to care about that as much as just staying in groups and just swimming together, I guess.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like even in Long Lake, there's a lot of that. I mean, there's a lot of panfish in the basin on Long too. And even when you find structure in the same depth range that the fish are in, they sometimes completely ignore it. Like it's not even there. Like you find a tree in 20 feet of water and there's panfish right there on that 20-foot flat, and there's no fish around the tree. Like they just don't care for whatever reason. It makes no sense, but.
No, I know. And Long Lake would be, if I could build a lake, I mean, Long Lake would be ideal. I mean, it's got beautiful structure. It's got beautiful weeds.
Mm-hmm.
It's got plenty of bait. And the fish, like you say, they don't care about any of it at all.
Sometimes they don't at all. I mean, you can fish primo looking spots all day long and get absolutely whipped on that lake. Like it's just, it's brutal sometimes. Like, how can there not be fish on all this incredible looking structure? But sometimes it just doesn't matter. They do what they want to do.
No, I know. And Chetek is no different. It makes you, it tests your your mental state, like I literally live across the street, and if it was a better year, travel wise or ice wise, or travel on the ice wise, I should say, I would be fishing up by you or east of you or north of you. And I would fish the Chetek chain once or twice a month, right? Mm-hmm. With this year, and I know that the ice is safe, the places I've traveled, I'm going to probably fish on the Chetek chain the entire winter.
Yep.
And I'm going to, I've been fortunate in the past 4 or 5 times we've been out, and we've caught some beautiful fish. I mean, I don't know, 40 or 50 over 9 inches, and some beautiful crappies. We've got 3 over 13 inches, and some beautiful perch. We found some really big perch yesterday. The biggest one was almost 13.
Those are nice.
I mean, they're just, I guess it's not lucky, but there's just not a lot of extra traffic, which helps. Mm-hmm. But you hit them with the Panoptix, and you walk out 50 feet and you drill a hole, and you don't know where they went. Mm-hmm. Hey, where'd they go? I just saw them. I just took 12 steps, 6 feet per step, and I walked past them to drill toward them, and now the guy running the Panoptix has no idea where they went.
Yep. That's crazy, huh?
No idea.
Matt Stewart says, "Come up here, eel pout soon." Yeah, it is getting close to eel pout time. I'm hopefully going to make the annual eel pout trip, the burbot trip up to Lake Superior, probably towards the end of February, early March, as long as the conditions are decent. And that's a pretty consistent deal. That's fun. Those things are fun to catch, good to eat. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, Matt, I've known Matt, 15 years, I suppose. He fishes, or he guides with Jared Houston.
Yep, I know Matt, too. Actually, he was in one of my last videos.
Yeah, you guys met at the Duluth show. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, Matt. Yeah, we've caught a lot of eelpout together actually.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll never turn down. I don't care what anyone says. They are like you say, and they bite the weirdest stuff, and they bite the most gnarliest hunk of metal you could ever possibly imagine. And the table fare is probably the best freshwater fish out there by far.
They're hard to beat. I mean, and it's so different than anything else. Like that's why it's so hard to compare it to anything because it's nothing like a walleye or a bluegill. It's just a totally different fillet. You know, the meat is like super. It's tender, but it stays together, and it's kind of buttery, and it's just totally different. So good though, especially out of Lake Superior. I mean, you just can't beat them. They're as clean as they get.
Oh yeah, and that with that fish, and you probably know more of the biology of that fish, but correct me if I'm wrong. But as far as their skin is so thin, they rarely ever actually leave cold water.
Mm-hmm.
So their meat is, it's like it'd be comparing a pike in the summer where we live. That's anywhere 75 to 80 degrees. And then you eat one now. I mean, there's a totally different texture of that fish's meat where, a eelpout will never actually leave cold water in their lifetime, and they're extremely not unless they're spawning. So it's rare for people to even get underwater footage of them unless they're in their spawning state, because the majority, 11 months out of the year, they're pretty much ghosts, for the most.
Yeah, they're like you said. Even when they spawn, they don't spawn in water. They will spawn under the ice. So when they're spawning, the water's still in the 30s, and they rarely come out of like probably 50-degree water is about as warm as they'll ever be in. So, and they're like a cod. They're very similar to an ocean cod, which is a deep water ocean fish.
Yes.
So. Can you go out of Bodine's yet? As far as I know, no, you can't. Pretty rough ice conditions up there right now. Matt says he's ready whenever. All right.
We'll take you up on that, Matt.
We'll let you know.
Absolutely. It's been a while since Matt and I have actually fished together. Just with schedules and stuff. But yeah, Jared lives just out of South Range, and Matt's not too far away. I mean, they're right there. So.
Yep. Oh, Muskie Junkie has a good question, and I have an answer. So he says, how the hell do you keep your feet warm? I haven't found a good boot yet to handle the task. I'm talking the brutal stuff you guys do. Any tough tips for us guys over 50? So I have found what I consider to be basically the perfect boot, and that's the Norfin Klondike. I have not ever used a boot that even approaches the lightweight, moisture wicking, waterproof, comfortable status of those boots. And I mean, I just can't even. I don't think I could ever wear another boot personally. And I've tried a lot of different ones, and nothing even came close to those for me. I never get cold feet in them. You literally put them on and you don't worry. That's you forget you're wearing them every time because your feet never get cold. They don't get wet. So I don't know. What more can you ask for?
Right. No, I have, I know a couple of them dudes from North. Well, obviously we both know a couple of the guys from Northland. And I've been a lacrosse guy forever. Ever since the rubber boot revelation started, 15 years ago, I suppose, when we were all still wearing leather or cloth style boots, and rubber boot was for a duck hunter. I mean, you never wore it on the ice. It just wasn't.
Yep.
It wasn't, even though we were splashing around the water and the slush and the snow. I mean, we were still wearing cards, 15 years ago, but a lot of people were. Maybe you and I weren't, but I tried on Northins at the ice fishing show, and I've never held on to a rubber boot made for a guy or a gal, for that matter, that was that light.
Mm-hmm.
I could put like a set of lacrosse boots that I wear. I wear the lacrosse Alpha Burleys. Pretty much indestructible. I fit them with my auger accidentally. I've walked through the gnarliest garbage on planet Earth, and whether it's on the 4-wheeler or whatever, and they've kept my feet warm. They've kept my feet dry, and they've kept my feet, from not getting wet. But they are heavy.
Mm-hmm.
I think the combined weight on a set of boots is probably 5 pounds. I think. I want to say maybe that's a little on the high end, but I would say it's pretty close because all the insulation is in the bottom tier of the boot. There's no insulation above the ankle of that boot.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I am seriously, thinking about if I don't get them, I'll probably buy a pair of Norphins next year because I'm on my feet all the time. I rarely sit. I'm constantly moving, and that's how I personally stay warm when I'm ice fishing. But to just eliminate some of that weight. I mean, the bibs get heavy and the coats get heavy with all our gear and the coats. You and I both wear the same style of suit. And our pants are getting extremely wet this year and heavy because of all the slush and the snow and the water kicking out the snow after you drill a hole and, putting your in, kneeling down and all that stuff to land a fish or whatever we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I've never felt a humongous difference in something that I wear, for 4 months out of the year. And the Norphin is by far the lightest boot I have ever touched, probably in my life, by far.
And the thing that I like about them, even more than the weight, is my feet sweat all the time, whether they're cold or hot. They never stop sweating ever. I have sweaty feet, just a fact. And every other boot I've ever worn, my feet are just soaked by the end of the day. But these have felt liners in them, and the way they're designed, they literally pull the sweat, the moisture to the edge of the rubber away from your foot. And like when you take the liners out, the rubber will be wet, like have water droplets on it, but your feet will be dry. It's crazy. I don't know. And as far as stand hunting, like Muskie Junkie just asked, I wouldn't wear another boot in the stand either because it's the same thing. My feet don't get cold in them. They just don't. They're incredible. Like I would say it's one of the biggest breakthroughs in ice fishing gear that I've ever found are those boots.
I believe it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it just makes a big difference on the ice when you don't have to worry about your feet getting wet and cold. Like ever. And you don't have to carry, 5 pounds of extra weight to make it happen. So,
yeah, 100%. I mean, as we move around on the ice, the only thing that's in contact with the coldest part of, what you're doing is your feet.
Mm-hmm.
And on my particular boots, compared to Caleb's are extremely thin compared to mine.
Mm-hmm.
My sole on my boot is probably 2 inches of rubber.
Mm-hmm.
And over the course of the day, I mean, that's going to eventually freeze or not, if not freeze, get cold. And so every once in a while, the bottom of my foot will be chilly. Not to the point where I have to take it off and warm up my foot, warm up my foot, but that whole entire rubber part of my boot does get cold. I mean, that's a fact. I mean, I've used this particular pair for probably 4 or 5 years now, and the pairs in the past have been the same way. It's a thick part on the bottom, like I said, but the sole is extremely thick, and that's the part that you want to keep warm. I mean, your bottom of your foot gets cold, and you're screwed. But that Norphin boot, it's thin all the way around. I've never seen that design before. And there's a lot of companies that make a lot of really nice boots. But for what we're doing and standing on a frozen block of ice for 4, 6, or 8 hours or however long you're there, most important, your feet and your hands and your face, the exposed parts.
I think those Norphins are made out of, I think it's a flexible PVC. So it's a much lighter plastic than rubber. Natural rubber is heavy. It just is. It's super flexible, but it's heavy. And that's, I think, how they keep the weight down. But it also doesn't have rubber rot. They don't ever crack because they don't use natural rubber. So I've never had a hole in one yet. So that's another bonus.
No
But
kidding.
the other kind of cool thing about them is they have flip down cleats. So on a different year where you're on slick ice all the time and you forget your crampon cleats, you can basically put them in 4-wheel drive and drop your cleats down. They just flip right out of the soles and away you go. I've used those a lot actually, and they're pretty slick. I was at the Euro Tackle booth at the St. Paul Ice Show, the big one, and we were right next to Norfin, and they sold out of Norfin, all the Norfin boots by the second day of the show. They were out of them. That's how fast they were going.
No doubt. Yeah, that's where Andy Walker was down there. And I think Jean Paul was down. Did you meet Jean Paul?
Yeah, he was right next to us. He was who was he working for? They were right across the aisle from us there.
Thorn Brothers.
Brothers. Yeah, it was Thorn Brothers. I think he was helping out.
Yeah, if you ever want something tested, just give it to that guy because he lives on the northwest angle.
Yeah, he gets ice like most of the year.
And he was a hockey player, so he doesn't. If that guy gets cold, then you know it's cold.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if he's representing a Norfin boot, and he lives in probably the coldest climate in the lower 48. I mean, I can't imagine there's any colder places in the U.S. other than Alaska, obviously. But if he is representing that particular boot, then that boot is something that everybody should at least try on, take a look at, regardless of price. I mean, comfort outweighs price, but in my book, I mean, you don't want to be miserable when you're ice fishing or duck hunting or bow hunting or whatever. I mean, it's not, because you're not going to enjoy it, and we're out there to enjoy the great outdoors and the woods and the water, and whether you're by yourself or with your family or whatever. I mean, if you got cold feet, it's just going to suck, plain and simple.
Matt Stewart says he's got to go. Give me a call. Yeah, we'll give you a call. I'm headed to North Dakota tomorrow. Do you want to come? I'm heading to the Mississippi tomorrow. I got a big airboat trip. Actually, tomorrow night we're going out with McCormick's on the Mississippi tomorrow, or on Saturday with the Neptune Ice Rod crew. So that'll be my fishing for the weekend, and hopefully we can get on some big jumbo perch. That's the hope down there always. But
okay.
Yep.
No, sorry, buddy. I gotta work this weekend. I wish I could.
Yeah, North Dakota would be fun. I heard they had a lot of snow too, but I know it'd be I've been meaning, that's on my list for sure. I definitely want to get to Devil's Lake someday. Never fished it yet in my life, so I feel like that's something I should probably do.
Yeah, it's I've been there. It's I guess in my experience I found lakes that were closer or east of Devil's Lake that aren't as pressured, and they were a lot better for jumbo perch and walleyes. But yeah, Devil's Lake, it didn't live up to the hype in my experience because we went there in like late March, and unfortunately we didn't have very good success. But I know exactly where Matt's house is. I've been to Ashley, North Dakota. There's some guys from Balsam Lake, Wisconsin that have a house there, and I fished. There's one lake in particular in Ashley, North Dakota, that's got a railroad track running right through the lake. I forget the name of it, but it's literally like 3 miles out of that city. 15-inch perch, beautiful walleyes, and big northern pike.
Yep.
I personally haven't caught a 15-incher, which is in most, I would say 99% of the occasions is 2 pounds. But I've caught 6 that were at 14 3/4, which is by any means no slouch.
No. Yeah, they're fish factories, a lot of those lakes, and
Dry lake, yep.
Dry lake, and most of them just don't get pressure compared to here. No one fishes them.
No.
So you've got incredible food because they're all full of freshwater shrimp. You've got
Yes.
just insane numbers of fish with unlimited food. They can grow super fast and no pressure, and it's a recipe for incredible fishing, and a lot of those lakes out there.
Yeah, it's when you like the times I've been out there and you drill a hole and you have freshwater shrimp literally coming out of the hole, you almost want to put them in your pocket and bring them home. I mean, you can see them on your Vexilar. I mean, that's how many there are in the water. It's amazing that you get a perch or a walleye or pike to bite on a spoon with 3 red wigglers on it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you literally have access to 7 million freshwater shrimp, and you're going to eat my Northland spoon. But they do, and it's been a travel destination for people all over the United States, North and South Dakota both. But when you catch a perch that it's literally shaped like a football.
Yeah.
The head is like the size of a peanut, and the tail is the size of maybe like an Oreo cookie,
mm-hmm.
and then the body is shaped like a watermelon. Like you want to go back.
That's a sign of a fast-growing fish right there. When you got that blimp look with it looks like a 10-inch fish swallowed a 14-inch fish, and it's just this little tiny head and tail sticking out the end. That means they're growing fast.
Yeah, and they do have stocking programs in both North and South Dakota for like where we live. They have medium-sized trout, and then they have broodstock trout. In North Dakota, South Dakota, they stock a tremendous amount of rainbow trout in the Black Hills.
Mm-hmm.
But the majority of the state is stocking programs for perch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool.
A fish over 12, or they stock a lot of fish in that 6 to 10 inch range as well.
Yep. Matt, I'd add you, but we're about to wrap her up here, so I'm not going to add you at this point because I'm about to shut her down. We usually kind of close it up at 10, so maybe some other time we'll get you on. But anyway, yeah, it was a good chat. I feel like we gave some good info on the ice conditions, as good as we could give for people, and it's still fishable. Fish are biting when you can get to them, and just if you're willing to work, it's definitely still worth fishing. It's just you got to be aware of the safety issues and the travel issues, and you'll be fine. So
I would probably add to that. In Caleb and ours, it's my experience this winter. We didn't mention that earlier in the show today, but we mentioned it last week. We are fishing smaller bodies of water.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going anywhere bigger, like the Hayward area, for example. We're not fishing that style of body of water. We're big and deep. I mean, Long Lake has a lot of water and it's deep, but there's a lot of accessible places close to shore.
Mm-hmm.
Caleb's not walking around Long Lake. It's 9 miles long. I mean, it's not.
You'd kill yourself trying to walk. Yeah. I mean, I'm staying within a half a mile walk everywhere I've been so far.
And where I live, the lake itself might be a half a mile wide. I don't even know. I would say 90% of it's not. And that it's safe ice where I've personally been traveling, but I have not been. I've been past Caleb's City once this year, and we had to walk, and we had phenomenal fishing. It was on New Year's Eve, but the ice itself was garbage. The only way we got out there was because there was a snowmobile trail on that road, or on that particular lake, and it was easy to walk. But if we would have had to walk on our own, it would have been hard.
Yeah. A lot of the snowmobile trails just opened in the last week or two. So that does help. That gives you another option to at least get, further out. They don't always go right to your spot, but at least, they're probably pretty much frozen down on the snowmobile trails. So that may help.
Yeah, but we're not fishing. I know this winter I probably won't step foot in Hayward.
No, me neither.
mean, in the back of my mind, you know, I know that there's fish there and I want to catch them, but it's not going to be safe. Like Caleb said, it's not going to be safe all winter. And it's not worth the risk. I'll just be on fish the rest of the winter, and I'm totally fine with being safe and coming home and having a couple of meals of fish with my family. But risking it is not worth it at all.
Just have to wait for them to open up and hit that early smallmouth bite up there. So, all right. Well, good talking, Dax. Good talking to you guys, everybody. Have a good night and good luck. Stay safe out there. And
good luck for weekend.
What's that?
Good luck for this weekend when you
go
down south.
Thanks. Yeah, I'll be giving a report for down there too. So we'll catch you later.
Sounds good, guys. Take care.